Thank you all for coming. Excited to tell you about an organization that I've been building, the Scientific Citizenship Initiative. But to start, I'll set sort of the background. We all know that we're facing increasingly complex challenges at the intersection of science and society, whether it's addressing climate change, preventing future pandemics, or navigating the ethical implications of AI. We need scientists working alongside society to solve these challenges and to do it in a way that addresses historical inequities, systemic racism, and other social injustices. At the same time, academia is also facing major challenges. We've seen increased politicization of our academic institutions recently. At the same time, a decline in public trust in science. I'll point out this decline is among all US adults. The decline is stronger on one political side, but it's also exists on the other. So these are reasons to be concerned. And people are recognizing this concern and calling for change. Students, from my experience and from others I know, are really starting to demand training on how to effectively engage with society. Funders of science, like the NIH and NSF, are requiring more programs that address public engagement, ethics, and the broader impacts of research. And even academic leadership. The most striking of this was last April, the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, who directly advised the President, called on federal agencies to make STEM communication and public engagement a core component of their mission and strategy, which is really exciting for us because that's what we do, which I'll explain a little bit more. But I think even more importantly, the public is calling for this. And so you can see here, the majority of the public think that scientists should consider it a part of their job to inform the public about their research and its societal impacts, and also that they should inform elected officials about their research and impacts on society. And so to address that, luckily we have a very passionate and growing community that I call the civic science movement. These are just a handful of people that we work with across this ecosystem. I'm not going to go into all of them, but just to say, like, there's a lot of people who care about this and are working to solve the problem. And that's where SCI comes in. So SCI is on a mission to support this growing civic science movement, to make science more societally engaged and impactful. We work with scientists, policymakers, STEM organizations to provide training and opportunities needed to address these pressing challenges that we all face. Before I get into the specifics of how we're doing that now, I'm going to go through the history of SCI. And so SCI conceptually started in 2018 at a dinner event that was organized by our founding faculty director, Angela DePace, co-hosted by the Dean of Harvard Medical School and the director of the Broad Institute. And I was fortunate enough to go to. It was very exciting. We had everybody from former Energy Secretary Orny Moniz to a handful of graduate students engaging in a really cool collaborative conversation. And the result of that was a leadership team was formed, which I was a part of, that helped conceptualize how do we address this problem of better preparing scientists to engage with society. We spent 2 years thinking that through, raising funds, et cetera. And in 2020, we programmatically launched the organization. We hired its first staff. I stepped down from the leadership team and became the founding executive director. We hired a curriculum development director, who's now my co-director, and a program coordinator, research assistants, a bunch of people. And we developed an approach to innovating in STEM education that involved developing new programs, piloting them, refining them, and then exporting them to the broader community. Over the course of 4 years, we used these programs to train hundreds of students, had 17 fellows. I'll tell you about our fellowship in a minute, engaged a lot of research assistants to inform our programs, do some reports for us, et cetera, raised $1 million in funds, did a lot of collaborative grants with other institutions who are interested in addressing this problem, and developed reports and advised the state legislature. As of this past July, SCI has become an independent nonprofit organization, yes, which is very exciting for us because we think it'll mean that we can broaden the reach of our programs. Instead of just working with Harvard students, we can work across all of academia. We can support our civic science partners that you saw on that previous slide, work to grow our community, and also continue to innovate and evolve our programs. So to understand what our programs look like, I'm going to go over what sort of our flagship programming was at Harvard. Broadly, this fits into two categories. There's also the research reports and other stuff, but this is kind of the highlights. We have classroom-based civic science training and experiential learning, where we give students opportunities to go out in the world and actually practice the skills that we teach them in the classroom. Our classroom style learning had sort of two different modes. One is workshop style, simulation based. I'll give you an example of that. And then we also had a full semester applied communications course. So let me give you a couple examples to make that kind of concrete. Yes, these are STEM graduate students that this material was used on. I think there are a couple undergrads in some classes and a couple postdocs, but primarily STEM graduate students. So one example of our workshop style simulation, students are put in the role of founders of a biotech startup. And this biotech has created genetic editing technology that can alter entire ecosystems to eliminate invasive species. This technology does really exist right now. And they're put through a number of difficult decision points. And each decision point has outcomes that they then have to grapple with. So I'm just going to explain decision point one to give you a sense of what this is. So they've developed this technology. They've spent years doing it. They've tested it. They're very sure that it's going to work, and they want to deploy it. Originally, the technology was funded by a small island nation of New Ireland. And the environmental organizations provided funding because there's an invasive rat species that's threatening the population of native birds. However, between the time that they started funding the work and now, public trust has dropped and no longer has majority support. But with some engagement with the leaders there, you think you could get them on board and deploy it there. Second option is that you have an offer from the dictator of Equatorial Guinea, who wants to use the technology to eliminate rats that pose a public health risk. So they're destroying crops that are actually leading to death of people, not just in native species of birds. But in this case, the population is even more opposed, not just for safety reasons, but also on religious grounds. However, he has offered to work with you all to deploy the technology. And then the third option is that they can conduct additional research to try to address some of these safety concerns and spend 2 years doing that. So sometimes in these talks, I'll make the audience like talk it out amongst each other. But yeah, if you guys want to, actually, maybe we'll come back to it because I have a lot more in this than. So anyway, the point of this is students talk it out. They come to a decision sort of naturally on their own. They're scientists. They haven't had training in ethics and that sort of thing. But their decisions can then be put into sort of standard frameworks of ethics and policy making, et cetera. And so at the end, there's a debrief that sort of connects the way they naturally made the decision to existing frameworks. And for example, a lot of science students choose outcome number 3, conduct additional research. It is the standard mode of academia. And every decision has a high probability outcome and a low probability outcome. In this case, high probability is, both countries went through loss of GDP due to the impacts. In the case of Equatorial Guinea, people died, et cetera. The low probability is that there was actually a defect found in the technology that could have made the situation even worse. These are not meant to like illustrate what would actually happen, but just to give sort of an emotional response to like, oh, my decision had consequences, right? And then in this case, if they choose this outcome, they're really working in what's called like a precautionary principle mindset, right? And we explain that to them that that's a decision-making format where you value sort of caution and safety over technological advancement, which has trade-offs, increased safety, potentially decrease in innovation, et cetera. So there's a big debrief at the end that ties this into specific learning objectives. So that's a short workshop style course. Our full semester science communications course turns science communication on its head. Instead of thinking about how we remove jargon from our speech and sort of talk to general audiences, we teach communication through active listening. And we try to break down what we call this vicious cycle of communicating, where you really listen to attack or defend your point of view. And when you do this, you ask questions that are designed to make your point, which sort of triggers the other side to then be more vigilant. They attack and defend their point, and it goes around in circles. If you've ever had an argument online, that's what happens. And instead, we teach them more constructive cycles. So how do you listen to truly understand somebody's perspective? After listening to them, reflect on what they said, then respond, speak to be understood and assume good intentions, and then ask open and honest questions to really understand somebody's perspective. And we put them through like active exercises where they do this with each other, and they intentionally have one of these conversations, they intentionally do this, and they feel the emotional difference in those conversations when you engage with somebody. Just as a quick advertisement for this is probably one of our favorite quotes from a student saying that this course changed their life in the way they think about research and how they can best serve society. This is exactly the kind of outcome that we're hoping for, and was just really encouraging.
So are these courses focusing on policymakers and the audience here?
More general, yeah. So this is like, how do you deploy active listening skills in your everyday life? And how do you use that to engage with community, engage with sort of any audience?
And was this a 4-credit course, like for grad students?
Yeah, this is a 2-credit course for grad students. Yeah.
And it was called Ditching the Deficit Model.
Yeah.
Is this something they just chose to sign up for, or was it required?
Yeah, no, just chose to. All of our stuff was extracurricular because right now none of this is a required part of STEM education. That's one of the things that working group is trying to address. But the fact that all of our courses were over-enrolled, I think, speaks to the demand for this, because students have to do these things in our fellowship program, which I'll get to next, while still maintaining all of their academic responsibilities. And we designed them to make that feasible for them, but like the fact that they're signing up means they really want to do this, right? So, and they get credit, but they don't need credits. Like they have required courses, and that's the credits they require. So, other questions about this? Okay, so we pair this. At the end of 4 years, we did an evaluation. This is some samples. I need to make these graphs prettier because they're not good. But some samples of like measuring learning outcomes. So you can see this one here. I might be stepping out of frame. Confidence and ability to work in diverse team with conflicting opinions to reach group decisions. This is the before on a scale of 1 to 5, and this is the after. So you can see like big dramatic shifts here in people's confidence to work in diverse teams. Understanding different forms of ethical justification. Same, like these 2 bars go this one goes actually to 0. This one goes down to here. And so like big shifts. Similarly, understanding how to communicate your message to diverse audiences. First one goes away, shifts that way a little bit less than others, but awareness of how diversity of perspectives and value systems can result in different ethically justifiable decisions. Again, big shift. So we know this is working. Very exciting. This is after the workshop, the simulation that I showed you. Yeah, so this is in the workshop, I should say. In person, it's done over 2 3-hour sessions. Online, it's 4 2-hour sessions because everything takes longer online. But this is the kind of output that we get from that, which is very encouraging. Yeah, we do have some evaluation of the 2-credit course. The N is lower, so it's a little bit less exciting to show on a graph. Okay, so that's our classroom work. We pair that with experiential learning. The program we built at Harvard is called the Civic Science Clinic. It's a summer fellowship that allows STEM graduate students to work in service to society, either in the Massachusetts State House or in Boston-based community organizations. They spend 10 weeks working 20 hours a week, embedded directly in these organizations to provide scientific input and basically serve to support the organization. We have an ongoing mentorship program throughout the whole summer. We have an orientation that sort of like make sure we set them up for success, reiterate some of the active listening skills, etc. You can see, so this program is motivated by the fact that students really want opportunity to do this public service work. They want the career development experience that comes from it because they don't have options for career development outside of their research. And again, intentionally designed that they can do it alongside their academic responsibilities, but they're literally working a second job while also doing all of their summer research. So that just shows the level of commitment and excitement that they have about this. It was developed in 2 phases. We had a 3-year state house pilot where we just did the state house part of it, and then we did a year-long listening tour to then include these really cool community organizations. So Fenway Health is a Boston-based community health organization. Like, it's right around the corner. Eastie Farm's a really cool organization in East Boston that does community farming as a way to bring people together around different topics. And Essential Partners is an organization, a national nonprofit based in Cambridge that works to build dialogue across contentious differences. And they actually helped with our Ditching the Deficit Model course. That's our, so outcomes from that. We had 17 fellows, so I don't have graphs for you, but I have a few examples. So in 2020, we had a State House fellow. She helped with the COVID crisis. Obviously, that was the big topic that year. She had a great time. Office learned a lot from her. More importantly, as of a few months ago, she is in the immediate office of the director of the National Institutes of Health. So clear, impact. Oh yeah, it's down here. That, this is a professional development program that really sets students up to go on and do great things in service to society. The Eastie Farm example, Layla worked with them to help them with grant writing and educational projects, developed workshops for high school students. Again, they loved her. She had a great time. But the really interesting thing about this was afterwards, she told us that she really learned a lot about community engagement, and she wants to start incorporating community engagement into her research. Her research topic is fusion energy. And so that's the exact outcome we were going for, and we didn't explicitly tell her that, but this is what we're hoping, is you're working on an advanced technology that society is going to have a lot of strong feelings about. You should incorporate them in the decision-making process. And so that's literally what she came to us with afterwards. Very exciting.
First year, second year?
Yeah, so it's the applications are across all, but we did give preference to those later because especially for the first 2 years, you have to get through your qualifying exams and you really have to make sure that you're focused on that. Later, you have a bit sort of more mental space, but also you're getting prepared for your next career steps. And so in making the choices, we gave preference to those students. So.
Are there any clusters in terms of the areas?
That's a good question. So the program was based at Harvard Medical School, so we were a little biased to the life sciences, but we did, get fusion research. We got people from all over the place, but I think the cluster would be life sciences just because of our physical location, which was because our faculty director was at Harvard Medical School, and that's how universities work. So, other questions? Cool. Okay. Have to go. Okay, so now that's our history. Now, where are we going with all of this? So again, supporting the growing civic science movement, we're thinking about doing this in 3 broad phases. So first, we want to leverage Harvard's significant investment in creating all these programs and expand the reach, basically get them out into the world and also work to empower our partners. After we do that, we want to build a network of civic science educators that continue to innovate and evolve these training programs for their purposes. So phase 1, kind of where we're at right now. In terms of broadening our reach and supporting partners, thinking about this in 4 main buckets. So first, open access online learning. So taking the material that we developed at Harvard and making it available to educators and students worldwide. We have actually one of these, if you check our website, that was supported by the Burroughs Wellcome Fund, which is a fully open online simulation. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure thing. Outcomes are randomized. You play a researcher making difficult decisions about accepting funding and making research choices, public backlash to comments you make. It's fun. You should try it. And it's set up so a student can do it, and it also is paired with all of the teaching materials that an instructor would need to then bring it into their classroom. So we want to turn more of our material into that. Training workshops, so we want to continue to offer the training that we're doing, both online and in person, but also work to train the trainers, right? So we've already done a little bit of this at BU, training some faculty there to teach our material, and they now teach it. We want to do more of that. We want to expand our fellowships. This is something I'm personally very passionate about. I have a co-director. She's more the curriculum side. I'm more the experiential learning side. But we want to expand our fellowships in two ways. One, we want to make this civic science clinic open to students from a wide range of universities. So it was great to pilot it with Harvard students. Harvard students have a lot of resources. It would be really great. I've talked to people at UMass, trying to build other partnerships. So if you know of places that might want to fund students to go through this program, we think broadening it, making it more equitable, or equitable access to it could also lead to more diverse cohorts of students. Anyway, lots of benefits. We wrote a report on it. It's on our website. In addition to that, I'm working to launch a full year, we're working to launch a full year Massachusetts Science and Technology Policy Fellowship for postgraduates. There are programs like this at the national level that put scientists in the federal government. I actually did one of those. I worked in Congress for a year. It was a lot of fun. There's state level ones across the country. California has one. The oldest one's been around, I think, since the late 90s, but like Idaho, Connecticut, New York, all these states have it. Massachusetts doesn't have it. It's surprising to me. We also, just as a side note, our state legislature does not have a nonpartisan research service built into it. It is the only state without one of these. So having more scientific input, I think, to the state legislature, there's a long list of reasons. I could give a whole separate talk on it. So I'm working on that. And then last, providing strategic thought partnership. And so we're working with partners and institutions who are working at the intersection of science and society and thinking about new ways to approach science to help them sort of think through, use our expertise in building these programs over the years. So we did a project with the Broad Institute thinking about how to incorporate health equity throughout their research process. I recently did a project with the Personal Genetics Education and Dialogue program at Harvard, thinking about how they take their 10 years of material and sort of start to steer it in a scaling direction. And so using sort of our experience developing organizations, I developed this one, like Daniel said, one at MIT, to think about how you set strategy to do that. So that's phase one. That's where we are right now. Are we on time? I think we're okay. Phase two, we'll talk a little bit about. So after we get this material out into the world, our next stage is really to empower a network of educators. So through, doing train the trainer and getting, teaching these courses at other universities, et cetera, and other institutions, we'll sort of naturally develop a network and start to bring people together. And we want to bring people together in a way that connects across disciplines. People can share best practices. And like I said, there's this passionate and growing community. And I think there are people bringing them together like Daniel. And I think we can do even more of that. We then are thinking that we'd like to layer a civic science instructor fellowship on top of that, where somebody would actually come and work directly in SCI and learn sort of the methodologies we use for creating these simulation-based learning modules and create their own. We're in the process of doing this right now with a project on anti-racist curriculum for geneticists at the Broad Institute. We have a postdoc who's learning how to do this. And so we want to continue to bring people in, teach them sort of how we build these things, have them build their own, and then from there they can go off and continue to innovate in their own spaces. And then, of course, continue to provide support and collaborate with all of our partners. Phase three is the more distant thing, which is just continue to evolve in what we're doing. So obviously, issues of science and technology are going to evolve rapidly. There's new research all the time, and we're going to be on top of that cutting edge research. And the way it intersects with society is also going to continue to evolve and change. So that'll involve regularly updating our curriculum, incorporating new real world case studies as things happen, For example, one of our newest trainings is on geoengineering, which we can talk separately about, but that's a rising topic. It's how we can alter the temperature of the planet by putting aerosols in the air to reflect the sun. People are starting to try to do experiments around this. Things like that will continue to happen. We'll need to continue to make new material. We'll want to expand our fellowship opportunities, think about more partners, more different ways that scientists can be in service to their society and local community, and also think about replicating this fellowship model. So part of where the Civic Science Clinic came from is the idea or the history of law clinics, which was actually started through a grassroots movement where students really wanted to have a chance to practice what they're learning and also contribute to social justice issues during the civil rights movement. And they spread organically. A few schools started them, they set the model, other schools incorporated them, etc. I do have this dream that this would happen in this sort of civic science clinic model could be spread that way. Yeah, and then the instructors that come through will help us continue to develop new material and embrace a culture of feedback and learning. So obviously we want to measure the outcomes and impacts of our program and provide transparent reporting of lessons learned. I'm sure we'll make mistakes. It'll be helpful for people to know. I'm sure we'll have great successes like the ones I showed here. And we want to make sure that we're monitoring that and keeping an eye on things and learning continuously. And so yeah, SCI envisions a future where science and society work hand in hand to address our most pressing challenges, and we hope that you'll all join us. This is our new website that we need to get Google to recognize over our Harvard website, and this is a QR code if you want to get there easily. And that's it.